What's up guys, it's Lord Both here with another video, and apparently Bandai Namco is in a bit of financial trouble. This comes to us from Bloomberg. Bandai Namco cuts jobs, culls titles as game sector woes deepen. Bandai Namco Holdings Incorporated is cutting its workforce after canceling several titles in the latest sign that rising costs and plateauing demand are depressing the games industry's bottom line. And how exactly are they cutting costs? Well, it seems that they are sending employees to what's called expulsion rooms. These are rooms where they are given nothing to do, putting pressure on them to leave voluntarily. If you've ever worked in the food, retail sector or anything like that, you might know that a common way businesses get rid of employees that they don't want around without actually firing them is a practice I like to call squeezing. Essentially, the scheduling manager schedules the employee less and less hours on the schedule until that employee doesn't find the amount of hours that they have on the schedule viable for them to actually support their own life. So they end up having to find a different job. That employee isn't outright fired, but their inability to make an actual living wage off of the job that they have forces them to find employment elsewhere. This is similar to that, but different in the way that employees are typically given no work-related tasks, but are left with the knowledge that their performance will give managers ammunition to cut severance when they do leave. So essentially, these employees are being put into a room with no work to be done, but are told that if they don't get any work done, it will hurt their performance reviews or something like that, which will in turn hurt how much severance money they get when eventually they leave the company or retire. So to save as much money as they can, they want to leave as quickly as they can. So as the article states, many employees use their time in such rooms to look for other jobs. Since April, affiliate Bandai Namco Studios Incorporated has moved about 200 of its roughly 1,300 employees to such rooms, and nearly 100 have resigned. This comes off the back of the company's shares sliding 1.2% in Tokyo Wednesday. Like its competitors, the company is now under pressure to cut costs and adjust to a post-pandemic drop in the time users have for games. Yes, 2020 was 4 years ago. COVID is a long-distance memory for most people at this point. Smartphone and online games have borne the brunt of the cool-down sentiment, forcing Bandai Namco to overhaul its game title lineup, resulting in $141 million in write-downs in the 3 quarters to December. So what are they blaming the job losses on? Well, it looks like they're blaming it on financial losses due to people not buying and playing mobile games as a result of not having time to play games because they're in the office again. Bandai Namco's staff cuts reported by Bloomberg News show a sector that faces higher development costs, gamers' limited attention spans for new games, and expected game revenue drop in Japan this year. So there's more stuff that they're blaming. Higher development costs, limited attention spans. People don't last on new games as long as they used to. And expected game revenue drop in Japan. I don't know exactly how much that's going to affect the general gaming market. I mean, you do have a huge international market you can still play a part of. But I don't really accept those financial woes when we look at the success of places like Arrowhead Studios and Saber Interactive, because they've made quite a fortune on the very good games that they've published this year. So maybe it's not that the development costs are outweighing the money that you can make from the games. Maybe it's that your games are not justifying your development costs. Maybe it's you're not putting out good games. This extends to peers such as Sony, which canceled its Concord title that was reported to have cost $400 million. We covered that extensively here. And it wasn't the development costs or the limited attention span or people going back to the office after COVID's over 4 years on now. It was the fact that Concord, from its very inception, was a terrible game. As well as Square Enix, which, like Bandai Namco, incurred hundreds of millions of dollars in write-downs last year from cancellations. Again, Square Enix put out a bunch of bad titles that didn't make them money. Again, this is just companies that are finding any kind of excuse to blame other than the fact that they did a bad job. And just like those other companies like Sony and Square Enix that took a massive hit because they produced games that were epic failures, Bandai Namco also looks to be producing a game that's going to be an epic failure. This comes to us from Bounding Into Comics, Bandai Namco and Reflector Entertainment's Unknown 9 Awakening shaping up to be a financial disaster as ugly character models and Sweet Baby Inc.'s influence repel fans. In light of its terrible character designs and ugly looking visual design, rumors are swirling that the upcoming story-driven action-adventure game Unknown 9 Awakening has absolutely terrible pre-order numbers. By the way, the girl in this picture here, that's supposed to be Anya Charlotta, or as you might better well know her as, Yennefer from the Witcher Netflix series. Now personally, I don't think Anya Charlotta is an outrageously gorgeous girl in her own right, but there's no denying they did her pretty dirty here with this character model. The article goes on to state here that much of the blame for its low interest in the upcoming game boils down to the involvement of Sweet Baby Inc.'s founder Kim Belair, who is credited as the main architect of the game's story. Having done little for the industry except pushing identity politics, Sweet Baby Inc. has found itself on the outs with players due to not just its agenda, but the fact that the games the company work on tend to release as complete narrative disasters, such as Flintlock, The Siege of Dawn, Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, and Gotham Knights. All of these games have been epic financial disasters, and Bandai Namco, who employs Sweet Baby Inc. to essentially head this game's storyline, looks to be a financial disaster. How big a financial disaster based upon the pre-orders? Well, according to Stuttering Craig, who hosts the Side Scrollers podcast on YouTube, who has an industry insider who's fairly high up the chain in terms of physical sales. Apparently in their 900 stores that insider covers, they've seen a total of 42 pre-orders. Less than 1/5 the amount of pre-orders for Concord, which was such a bad financial disaster, the game was canceled and refunded to the players that actually bought it. Now, Bounding Into Comics does say it should be noted that while physical pre-orders for a game may be low, the numbers do not take into account any potential customers who've pre-ordered the game via digital storefronts. As such, it's possible the game could be going gangbusters digitally, but it's highly unlikely as physical numbers still serve as a good indicator for players' general interest in a given game. Because yes, even if the online digital pre-orders for this game, Unknown 9 Awakening, were 10 times the amount of physical pre-orders, you're still looking at 420 pre-orders. That's horrific. And this game by Bandai Namco looks to be doomed for failure. And bad decisions like this game, bad decisions for employing Sweet Baby Inc., which has become essentially box office poison in the gaming industry, and spending tens if not hundreds of $millions on these games, and years upon years of development, not just in Bandai Namco's case, but in the gaming industry in general, is the reason why we're seeing such bad economic downturn in the AAA gaming industry these days. They blame COVID. COVID is 4 years past. They blame development costs. Those are the development costs that they chose to sink into these games. They blame lack of interest. Well, people have lack of interest because they do research about these games and they see companies like Sweet Baby Inc. attached to these projects, and they just dismiss the entire game from the start. So all the reasons Bandai Namco outlines as to why they're failing is either not actually why they're failing, or why they are failing, but not the way they think of it. But those are just my thoughts on all of this. If you have your own thoughts, go ahead and leave them in the comments. If you like this video, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe. If you didn't like this video, I appreciate you watching all of it. We'll talk to you again later.